They traded T.J. Hockenson for 2 pick swaps.
So I think it makes sense. And when I look at the second and third round picks that we've made, aside from Levi, right, Kirby, Aleem, Josh Pascal, I'm really excited about all those guys.
People are starting to think about Bryce Young and the Honolulu Blue, maybe even a C.J. Stroud.
For me, though, it's not on my radar. Like, if I'm the GM, it's not on my radar right now.
Is Will Anderson that guy? Before this season started, had 142 quarterback pressures in 28 games played.
I think if you're that high, that's probably where it's going to end up going.
It's good to have you on, and let's get right into it, man. I got to get your reaction of the T.J. Hockenson trade to Minnesota. You know, we know it was basically they traded T.J. Hockenson for 2 pick swaps. They moved a 4th, got a 2nd, moved another 4th that could be a 5th, got a 3rd out of it. What was your reaction to that deal, and how do you think it helps or hurts the team going forward?
Yeah, I know initially when I saw this deal, I was upset because we're 1-6, and when you see moves like this, it makes me think of the Tate one. But Tate one was year 1. It was a whole different situation. But really, standing back and looking at it, I don't have a problem with the move. I think from when we talk about building a team, making that trade for what we got in return, you said it, like a 2nd and a 3rd. For what we gave up, one of those could turn into a 5th, I believe. I think it's worth the deal. I really do. Like, I think you guys were hitting on it. I didn't think we were going to probably pay him long term, and I don't think he brings that impact. Like, certain offenses value different things, but I don't think he's that type of level player where it's worth paying 14, 15 million, especially offensively, where I don't know if we need that. So I think it makes sense. And when I look at the second and third round picks that we've made, aside from Levi, right, Kirby, Aleem, Josh Pascal, I'm really excited about all those guys. So I think it makes sense. I just think the biggest thing that stands out to me, even if Brad doesn't want to say it, I think it's the money. I think it's the money, man. I mean, paying that much where you could possibly have 11, 12 million. Next year it's like 9 million. Go to a receiver or a cornerback or something like just a more premium position. And I just think it makes sense. But I'm sad to see him go, but I do think it makes sense.
I agree.
Yeah, I'm with you too. And like, I know you weren't buying it that he'd say you still probably would have made the move. They were 6-1, but I am, because like it wasn't like as good as he can be. It's not like we were utilizing him to his full potential, and we would have. The money was a situation too. But Dion, I appreciate you hopping in with us, man. You're my guy. You know that, but you're also a Jared Goff guy, and I gotta ask. So we haven't talked in a minute. And like dirty thoughts are starting to creep in. People are starting to think about Bryce Young and the Honolulu Blue, maybe even a C.J. Stroud. Like, as a Jared Goff guy, or self-proclaimed, I don't know if you still are or not. I apologize for putting that title on you, but like, isn't that stuff starting to creep in for you? Knowing the season starting at 1-6, and we might have that number 1 overall pick.
I was talking to Banks about this actually, because it's a concern of mine that I believe if you do end up with a top 5 type of pick, most of the time you end up going quarterback. For me, though, it's not on my radar. Like, if I'm the GM, it's not on my radar right now. I know the financial situation with Goff the next 2 years. I know it's a pretty favorable contract for me. But also on top of that, like, I do not think it's definitely not him. I mean, it's not him. We have some things I think we fixed defensively. I thought honestly Miami was one of the best games they played this year. With a couple little things, but it's one of the best that he's played. So it's not on my radar personally. I mean, it can be, but I really do think that if, you could take those potential picks, a couple of top picks in the draft, you could figure out what you want to do with them. But like I'm saying, man, if you grab like a corner or you throw another top name receiver, I think everything shifts immediately. But I already see the success we're having offensively. So I just look at the last 3 years of quarterbacks drafted and tell me how many quarterbacks are playing better than Goff right now of the last 3 years. Also, how many play better in year 1? It's a very small list. Maybe Herbert, right, in year 1. So I worry about that, because once you get into year 3 and you start to go down the road of year 3, okay, you're coming off a poor season again. There's pressure on you. You got to start winning football games. And I just think you could take those premium picks and utilize them elsewhere at positions where you clearly just have deficiencies. But I'm not mad at taking a quarterback somewhere, but my radar personally.
Okay, that's fair. Would you? So if they land that number 1 overall pick, if somehow I don't think we will, because I don't know if Houston can win another game this year. I expect the Lions to at least get 1 or maybe 2 wins for the rest of the season. So I do think we'll be above Houston.
Shit ain't fair, dog.
But I think Houston will go quarterback no matter where they are, because I do not believe they believe in Davis Mills. Is Will Anderson that guy? Because we broke it down yesterday. The guy, before this season started, had 142 quarterback pressures in 28 games played. Like that is completely insane
face.
stats. Is Will Anderson that guy for you, or is there another defender? I know they're talking about, I can't remember his name, out of Georgia, but who would you have your eyes on if it's not a quarterback?
Yeah, no, I think if you're that high, that's probably where it's going to end up going. I mean, it's just rare to see other positions other than quarterback as a pass rusher. The only thing I worry about that is just the whole Romeo situation. Like, I'm cool with Charles, okay, but just Romeo and where his contract's at, I guess they'll probably just
Where
roll
out
him.
that
But then
Romeo?
you draft another edge on top of it. No, it's just weird. It's a lot of money at one position, and you don't know who's healthy or not.
That's fair.
But if it's not that for me, the position, honestly, I'm circling as the biggest need right now is 100% cornerback. So I don't care if that's a top free agent signing, and that's where you take some of that Hockenson money. If that's a top draft pick, it doesn't have to be a top draft pick. But if there's a need for us as cornerback, because it's hard to hide it. I really think if you looked at positional groups and you said, okay, what guys are here for the future? You look at corner, there's only one guy that I think you could confidently say is going to be here for the future. Jerry maybe, but we're still kind of waiting to see. Hefe, right? I mean, aside from that, who is back? They moved Diffie to safety. 100% it's cornerback for me at the top. But yeah, if we could get Will Anderson with Hutch, that's disgusting.
Speaking of that cornerback position, we did see, obviously, going up against, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. That's going to make a lot of defensive backfields look pretty bad. But you got A.J. Parker out there getting toasted. You got Ermanni out there getting toasted. Hefe was really the only one, kind of standing up to these guys and doing his thing. And they end up firing Aubrey Pleasant after that game. We haven't talked about this yet with you, and I just...
Dion just dropped the video on it.
Yeah, what are your feelings about the Aubrey Pleasant firing, moving on from him? I personally think it was a scapegoat kind of thing because, like I said, you already have a bad defensive backfield and you go up against arguably the best wide receiver tandem in the NFL.
The best wide receiver tandem in the NFL, no doubt about it.
Yeah, and that's why I go back to corner because Seattle was similarly, right? I mean, different way, but we had struggled with two top receivers. We had it done. But I think with that firing, I was going back and forth. Like, is this a scapegoat move? It definitely could be. But I just look at it as there's nowhere else to turn at this point. I mean, it's been obvious, and he even putting out an example of this game where the safeties are confused with Juju and Kirby, and you give up a touchdown. But going back to look at how he finished all of those close games, I mean, it's defensive breakdowns a lot of the time in the back end. Even this year, breakdowns back end. So some of these guys are young, we get that, but it's not even just coverage. We're having run fit breakdowns. It's if there was a position on a team where you say, what's the biggest issue with the defense? It's the secondary, specifically the corners and the safeties have their issues because guys are in and out all the time there.
Yeah.
So, but to me, all it does is there's nowhere else to turn now. It's got to get better. Because to me, it's like, I get that maybe you don't have the bodies to be a top defense. Not expecting that out of you. You're not getting that pressure. I don't expect that. But when you're the worst defense in football, you got to get off the field on critical downs, and that's what's not happening. Critical downs, we don't make the play, right? Third and long, we're not making the play. Got to have it in the field. So I don't know if I would say I don't know if I have an issue with the firing, but it's just kind of wait and see now. It's like, all right, does it get better? Because if this continues to be an issue, I mean, I don't know where you turn because this has been an issue for a year. Pleasant, by the way, has been here for a year and a half, so it does feel a little strange in that sense that all of a sudden now it's, you think you would have known that last
That's
year.
What I'm saying.
Dan Campbell made that decision.
Yeah.
Isn't that weird, though? I mean, how do you guys feel about that? Like, Dan Campbell apparently made this decision, and even going past the defensive coordinator to fire the coach. To me, it's almost like he doesn't know where else to turn because I can't fire my defensive coordinator.
Exactly.
I don't know the that's my guy. So it feels weird. Like, why would you? Because last year he didn't Anthony Lynn and say I'm gonna go fire a positional coach when the offense was struggling. He fired Anthony Lynn, and he took over play calls. So I think that's where scapegoat comes into play. But all it does to me is spotlights on. Aaron Glenn is not safe. I'll say that to me. Aaron Glenn has not proven that he should be the coach here for the future.
Why I thought it was the scapegoat because I agree with you. What you said that he kind of went over Aaron Glenn and went right to Aubrey Pleasant, and his interview after it pissed me off. He even said he doesn't know what it'll change. He's like, sometimes you just got to get a new guy in there, shake it up. Hopefully something will work out. I was like, dude, you can't be the head coach and saying stuff like that.
I just think he's being vague, but no, for me, I thought it was like an internal argument that may have happened between the two because you know how things just get like after the games and even in game at times where they're just going like back and forth and I think maybe it had happened then. I mean we don't really know, but listening to Aaron Glenn speak today, it sounded like it wasn't a decision he wanted to make, and it wasn't his decision to make. Actually, Dan Campbell was the one who came through, chopped that head off. That being said, how you feel about Dan Campbell now?
You make a good point there because I originally felt kind of that way. Like, the original thing was like, well, maybe there was that because you saw frustration between the two, but then when he goes out and make the decision, I'm like, what? I guess they might say that anyway. But with Dan, man, it's kind of the same boat. Like to me, I don't know where the trust is, the ownership and stuff, and I'm cool with the being patient and stuff. But again, we're not finishing games, and what I'm noticing is that going back to Lions history is like when we don't finish, it's usually a similar thing. It's defensively we're not making plays, so that's where I spotlight it. But for me, Dan Campbell has not solidified himself to me he's earned next year. Like I think there's things that need to be shown this year. You guys are saying, hey man, 2 wins. Like to me, 2 wins ain't gonna cut it. Like, hey, that ain't it, man. I ain't going. You can't go down. I mean, what are we doing? But I do think that there's a confidence level with him. Do understand that we're limited to areas, but it really is just a crucial downs. I mean, because you're talking about flags offensively that have bit us since last year. You're talking about defensively downs we don't get off the field. So that needs to change. I do think though he'll be here next year.